Hey Saab people, in today's video I'm going to show you the basics on how I relocated my battery in my Saab 9.3 with the 2.8 engine. I'm going to give you a basic parts list, I'm going to show you some necessary ground points, and a good place to run your power cable throughout the cabin of the car with some safety tips along the way. Welcome back to the channel, my name is Javen, but you probably know me best as Solving Saab. For this video, it's really important that you watch the entire thing, otherwise you risk your car intermittently not starting or you risk it catching on fire. I also highly recommend that you do your own research on this topic as a whole and do a lot of thinking and planning on your own setup. After you watch this video, you may want to do things completely different from me, and for that reason, there will be part specifications left out of the video. If you want to see some basic parts written down, you can go ahead and check the description, I'll leave them in there for you. The idea is to show you how I made my setup, key grounding points, how to run your positive cable, and some safety tips. I also highly recommend that you get your battery cables pre-made to certain lengths with certain lug sizes on the end. I made my own battery cables and it was very irritating. Once again, I am not liable for your setup and I highly urge you to do your own research and heavy preparation before you get into this. This right here is your stock 2.8 engine bay, and as you can see, it is totally crammed. This empty box right here is where the battery normally sits. This is right next to the turbo and the exhaust. This system creates a whole bunch of heat right next to the battery. If you move the battery into the trunk, you remove it from this heat source. This increases the service life of your battery overall. This also allows more air gap space between your turbo and the rest of the components in the engine bay, which reduces the amount of heat soak under the hood. When the battery and the box are gone, this also opens up a lot more service space to work on components around this area. If you want to make under the hood modifications or go big turbo, removing the battery box is also a great idea. The only con I've experienced from doing this job is when your battery is in the trunk, it can be a little bit tricky to jumpstart people in an emergency situation. For this job, you're going to need common hand tools and something to cut and strip large diameter wire. You are also going to need soldering materials. This is going to be a blowtorch, soldering slugs, solder, something of that nature to make strong connections. So let's go over the basic components you're going to need. You're going to need new battery terminals. These connect onto the positive and negative terminal of your battery. You're also going to need a bunch of various sizes of lugs. These go on the ends of your wire to connect to the various components that you're going to need for your battery relocation. You're going to need 16 to 18 feet of 0 gauge, 1/0 or 2/0 cables. 0 gauge and 1/0 are the same thing. And you are also going to need about 2 feet or so of negative cable, which is also going to be 1/0 or 0 gauge. A very important detail about your battery cables or your wire, whatever you want to call it, make sure you get high quality copper wire. Do not get CCA wire. This does not stand for cold cranking amps. This stands for copper clad aluminum. Copper clad aluminum is much lower quality than copper wire and it will not work properly in your system, so do not get it. You are going to need heat shrink. This is going to help protect your cable against shorts when you have your lugs installed on them and they are connected to various points on the system. It will also preserve your cable from oxidation. You are also going to need a 150 amp breaker or a similar fuse setup. I choose to go with a breaker. The breaker is reusable once it trips for safety reasons, and a fuse burns out and you have to replace it. This 150 amp breaker I've been using for quite a while in my system and it is proven more than sufficient. Essentially what this will do is if any shorts occur in the system or any fires start, this will stop power from flowing. Make sure you get one of these or get a fuse. I also recommend getting a fireproof protective cable loom to go all the way along your cables, so you'll need about 20 feet of it or so. I recommend getting this because we are going to be running a cable along the full length of the car's body underneath carpets and stuff, and you don't want that to rub up on the body and chafe over time, causing a short, which will catch on fire. You are going to need something to tie together your wires in the front of the car where the battery used to sit. This is a 0 gauge to smaller gauge distributor block. It will essentially tie into our 0 gauge wire that runs all the way through the length of the car, and it will tie into our 3 battery cables up in the front that used to be on the positive terminal. If you're going to use a distributor block, I highly recommend getting some wire ferrules. This will make your setup a lot safer in the front. Last items you are going to need is stuff to hold down your battery. I personally just went with a simple battery tray and a simple battery tie down kit. I got both of these at the parts store. Let's get into how to do the job. The first thing you're gonna need to do is obviously remove your battery. It is your two 10mm bolts here and here, and then you take off your terminals and pop your battery off. Once your battery is out, go ahead and remove your vent that goes to the battery right here. We're gonna need to remove all of your fuse boxes here and this wire strip from the side of the battery box so that we can lift this up and out. So to do that, stick your finger on the inside here, push this tab and lift up. When you're pushing this in and lifting it up, it's very easy to pinch your finger in there. You can see my finger sticking through. Every time I do this, I end up hurting myself. So lift up on here. And then once this is out of the way, head and lift on this right here. Now keep these parts in case you want to put the car back to stock. For this part, just lift up until it comes free. Once you have those three things off there, let's remove the battery tray here. It's going to be 3 Torx bolts. When you have your 3 bolts out, you are good to remove your battery box. All you have to do is lift on it and keep these positive wires out of the way. The sacrifices I make, I just blew open 2 knuckles making this video for you guys. So once you get to the spot where it looks something like this, you're gonna have your positive cables right here, and you're gonna have your negative cable. There is supposed to be a mount in the side of the body here that hitches to the transmission. And on top of this, there is a 15mm bolt that attaches to your ground cable. You need to undo that bolt so we can pull that up and out. Second spot where your ground cable connects is the body right there. It's just like 10mm, I believe. Go ahead and unscrew that and then pull off your ground cable. As for your positive cables, if your positive terminal has a main battery switch on it, you are going to have to bypass it by putting all of your positive wires together and removing the battery isolator switch from the terminal. I believe you are supposed to leave it plugged in. Just tuck it somewhere safe. You could try disconnecting it. Unfortunately, I don't have any experience with this main battery switch because none of my 6 all-wheel drive cars have this component on it. I highly recommend going to the 2.8 Alliance group on Facebook. There are posts there, and I highly recommend reaching out to the group experts on there. To get some nice strong snips, and you are going to cut each of these wires. This one, and this one right here. Those 3 wires are exactly where we're going to want to set up our distributor block. So our 3 smaller wires are obviously going to go into the 3 smaller ports, and our 0 gauge that will run out through the entire car that comes through the firewall will go on this side here. You'll need your wire ferrules that are the same size as the wires that are under the hood of the car. You're going to strip them down to about the length of the silver area on the ferrule. You're going to put it through here. You're going to use your specialty crimping tool that came with the wire ferrule when the wire's all the way in the end there. Once you have your wire set up with the ferrule on the end, you take your wire and ferrule setup and you push it into the distributor block and you crush the ferrule right there. That's really just a basic crash course on how to do this. You should also make sure that your wire ferrules are not sticking way the heck out like this, because then you're making more contact area outside here. You will essentially want to shorten your wire ferrules so that they're pretty much flush with this system so that this doesn't make any shorts. Make sure to use the protective cover that came with your distributor block and make sure that it's secured somewhere to the body safely. Another solution for those 4 cables up front is to put an individual lug on each one and tie them together with a bolt. This will keep them nice and close, and that way it's easier to put wire sheathing or a loom over all of them together. Your 1 prong for 0 gauge coming out on the back side here. How you run your positive cable is entirely up to you. Some people like to drill a hole through the firewall and run it through that way for ease, but honestly, I don't like putting extra holes in the body of the car, so I'm gonna route it through an existing hole in the firewall. I'm gonna show you how it exists on my car just for reference. So we follow the distributor block, we go under the heat shield up here, and it goes through your firewall, way up behind here by your strut tower. I can show you on a parts car that has no engine. I have my positive cable running through here along this wire set there. There's your pedals going up and in. Follow your carpet. And then you'll see right there, that's where the wire feeds out. And if you push it through this way, you'll see it come out under the hood. This is kind of a 2-man job. My trick for getting the 0 gauge wire through that hole, run through the firewall like that, I used a smaller diameter PEX pipe. It was about 4 feet long. I rammed it through the hole, and I can't remember which side I duct taped it to, but I duct taped the 0 gauge wire around a whole bunch of times so I could either pull it through from the engine side back through the car, or I might have pulled it from the car side back through the engine. I can't remember which. I will show you how to run your zero gauge through the car. I ran it under the carpet as low as I could get it. It goes right under the seat behind all of the major electronics that run through here. It continues under the carpet right here. Underneath this plastic trim, right next to this wire set here, you want to make sure these clips here aren't hurting this. After I'm done filming, I am going to wrap this in a protective loom. It's running up this way. As you can see, the wire did start to chafe a little bit, and that's exactly why we want protective loom on here. Following this wire set back through this hole here, following around through the car, it goes through that hole right there that we just looked at, down this way, and then it goes over around this, and I'm going to personally tuck mine behind this plastic shield here for added protection and just so it's out of sight. Then it is going to connect to our breaker right here, and then that is going to connect to our battery. Doing this job, you want to make sure you have clean surfaces and have your area prepped for where your battery is going, so let's get into that. Okay, so I've gotten the area in the trunk all cleaned up. We are going to have to trim back this sound deadening. We got that trimmed away nicely there. Nice hole created right here where the battery can fit, but we do have a lot of wire sticking out over here. I'm going to get this wrapped up nicely. Just like that. Now let's see how well our battery fits here so that we can start on our battery tray. There we go. That fits in there pretty good. I am going to wrap some electrical tape around this ground point because that's just a little too close to comfort. Then I'm going to take some rubber hose and fit it over this just as an added layer of protection. There we go. Now nothing should bother us there at all. With our area well prepped, let's install our battery tray. I went ahead and marked it up. Then I threw some self-tappers through it to get the threading started. I'm going to tug on it right here to make sure these points are good. Feels nice. Now I'm going to throw some bolts through it afterwards. While I was back here, I made sure to drill through this spot right here. This is the thickest point I could find in the trunk, and it's perfect for a ground cable. To conclude the install, I put the battery in place, put the tie down on it, and then ran some silicone hose from the vent on the battery out the car vent right here to get the toxic gases to escape the vehicle. Next, I'm going to show you the key places to put your ground cables. I'll also give you a sneak peek at how I made my own battery cables. Absolute necessity for ground cables, you are going to need a cable that goes from the top of your transmission mount right here to the battery box bolt that sits right here. Reason for that is because your engine will not start without this cable. You need to make sure that your engine is properly grounded to the chassis. Any spots that your ground is going to contact the body, you want to make sure you scuff them up down to bare metal nicely. Trunk, I used a 20-inch long cable to go from the negative terminal to this spot right here. This was the thickest point I could find in the trunk. Your positive in the trunk should go from the positive terminal to your breaker. That should be about 12 inches long there. Then it will attach to the main cable in the trunk. So now we have our small ground cable that is going to go under the hood in the front. This is a 1/0 lug, and this is what we need for the bolt on the engine mount. Making my own battery cables was a big mistake. I needed a full-size blowtorch to make the rest. So our solder is nice and melted. This is the only lug that went on with ease. I highly recommend getting your cables pre-made. We'll let this cool for a minute. I did a tug test on here. It is nice and firm. With all of our cables made and run throughout the car, let's inspect every inch of them for damage, and then we will get them wrapped up in a fire retardant loom. I put heat shrink on all my cable lugs, and then I wrapped everything in a nice protective loom. Make sure to secure this loom with electrical tape and proper tie downs. So now we need to find where we can mount this breaker in a decent spot where it's going to be nice and flat. So I ended up mounting my breaker inside of this box right here. This is a repurposed Milwaukee box because I couldn't find anything else that I liked at the store or online. You go ahead and open it up, and then you've got access to your breaker to cut power or reset it if something happens, and you can close it up nicely and it won't run into anything, so I can use this area here for tool storage. I'm gonna have to vacuum out this again and get this all cleaned up. To finalize my setup, I am going to try and run the power cable behind the black plastic right here on the back side of the trunk, but at least it is all protected for now so I can start driving the car again. And I haven't had any ground issues at all with the car. I've been driving it with this setup for a few days now. Final notes, the only thing I would change is getting 90-degree lugs so that the cables would run flush against the battery this way to run under this carpet a bit nicer. I would also make the short cable going to the breaker a little bit shorter by a couple of inches or so. So with your battery successfully relocated, you can tie these down against the body wherever you need to. I have mine tied up over here like this using zip ties. I have this one zip tied against the back of the headlight right here. And something you can do to accent this even better is you can remove this battery holding bracket right here. A hammer and a chisel, and I went between the body right there and right there, and I just hammered it right out and it cut it in half right off of the body. So as you can see, this is the final product. We have opened up so much space on this side of the engine here. I do have some things hanging in the way. The wire set that was attached to the side of the battery box, I did rewrap that with some heat protectant and allow it to be a more loose form so it was easier to work around. And with that, guys, thanks so much for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.